state is a fiercely competitive and ruthless society. Misery and triumph.
And now, After Hours with Rixx Javix.
Welcome to After Hours with Rixx Javix. I'm your host, Rixx Javix, coming to you from the darkest reaches of low-security space, live from the Stay Frosty Lounge. Grab a cold drink, light a cigar, and let's talk. We're very lucky today to have the ever wonderful and extremely talented and beautiful CCP Mimic with us in the After Hours Lounge. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much for that very flattering welcome. It's wonderful to be here.
Excellent. And thank you for agreeing to do this. I know the time zones are weird and it's late there and everything, but I really appreciate it, taking the time out for us. So why don't introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about what you do at CCP.
Okay, I am CCP Mimic. I am the development producer for Team 50. So my job is basically to help the team that focuses mainly on sandbox features and balance work, and I guess that relates to everyday as the structures or making changes to ships or modules or anything like that, anything that affects the larger environment that is New Eden and where we all live and fly around in our spaceships. And so my job is to help the developers on that team get everything that they need to do their job and hit the deadlines that we have, and communicate with marketing and the rest of the community and everybody else and the rest of the business to make sure that everything's on track and everything gets delivered in the way that it needs to be delivered.
Very well said. Very well said. See, I wanted you to say that because I think a lot of people tend to forget that you are actually a producer, and that because you are so well known for the 07 show and the great work you do with Guard, and for the community outreach, and for going to the different events. You've been around a lot and very visible, so.
Yes, I suppose that would be my superhero.
Your superhero, right. Right.
That goes around and talks spaceships with my wonderful friend, CCP Guard.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you, let's push back the Wayback Machine a little bit then, and how did you get wrangled into that originally? Like, how did you end up,
how did I
get wrangled into the 07 show? Yeah.
Wow.
Do you remember?
Yes, I remember. I was 3 months old as a CCP employee.
Wow.
I started off as a GM, and it was the 10-year anniversary fan fest. And so they were hoping to do an extra special stream and get a bunch more producers. And not producers, presenters.
Right.
And CCP Sunset, who used to present the Alliance tournament and also FanFest stream with CCP Guard, asked me if I would help out. So that was then, and it's just been nonstop from that. And I guess I got wrangled into, you can never see me, but I'm usually the one holding up the smoke machine in all of the permaband music videos, or holding up the light reflector and all that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. You're a gaffer. Yeah. Yeah, that's the gaffer's job. Yeah. That's awesome. You're going to put that on your resume, a professional gaffer on music videos. That's great. That's awesome.
I think my best moment was actually in all of that adventure was filming the Killing is Just a Means of Communication video.
Right.
And that involved carrying a grand piano down a beach for a 17-second shot. That's it. That's the only time you see the whole thing.
That's excellent.
And then climbing up lava, and CCP Loki, who's has the craziest mad adventures and ideas about everything, going on and on and on about the smoke machine that they used to film Prometheus, the movie.
Right.
So he was smoking me out while I was trying to hold the speakers close to CCP Hunter so that he could sing along to the track, so that we would be able to sync up the voices for the character, and trying not to
which is a lot harder than you might think. That's very, very difficult. I've had to do that myself. Not me on camera. God, please. I don't like to be on camera. I like to be the people behind the camera. I've done a lot of television commercials and things over the years, but how do you feel about that, being on camera? I mean, not to, but it does seem like you were a little bit hesitant at first, but you've gotten a lot more comfortable over the years.
I definitely was. I used to get really nervous doing any kind of public speaking, and would always suddenly hit a wall, and just all the words would fall out of my head. And I come from a family of storytellers, and they all are wonderful at telling stories and giving speeches and all the rest, and I always felt quite intimidated by that. And so when they asked me to be a part of Eve TV, I knew that it was probably the most terrifying thing that I could possibly think of, but knew that I wanted to be able to speak to people and be able to be a presenter, be able to communicate ideas to people, and so just pushed my way through that. And was very, very nervous in the beginning, as I sometimes go back and watch some of those streams and just cringe, but.
Well, they were great though, and it was very it is very amateurish in a good way back then. The early days were very, very sort of seat of your pants, and I think there was a lot of charm in that. They've gotten you guys have really gotten really good at it though. I mean, it's very impressive how the last 4 or 5 shows have really gone a whole nother level too. I mean,
actually, if you say the last 4 or 5 shows, then I'd say that corresponds to exactly when we introduced Falling Swords.
Right. I didn't want to take any credit for that.
All down to you.
No. I think all I'm managing to do is confuse everyone, which is exactly what I set out to do. So, that came about once. I detest having to move anything, and I have an alt for that, And one day we moved from Ishimilkin. Stay Frosty moved from Ishimilkin to where we live now, and that was about. About 2 weeks of hauling things. So, in a Providence, it's very, very slow ship. Yeah. We're probably doing 35 jumps, in one direction and then 35 back. And I had a lot of free time on my hands. So I was just thinking about that, this is the most horrible thing I can imagine doing. So that's where the idea for that came from. But, because I have the weirdest thoughts when I'm doing that. Because, when you, the weirdest things interest me because, there's thousands of windows on that thing, on the freighters, right? So who is behind those windows? And I just kept thinking, if I'm moving passengers, are they watching movies? Or are they, are we handing out little packs of peanuts in there? And
all the peanuts.
Right. Are they
layers for the layers of the reside.
Right. Are they calling me up and complaining about the movie? It's like that's kind of funny. But so that's where those came from. It's like, what are they thinking about when they go through different systems? It's like guys looking out the window and like, I wonder what goes on in this place, That's funny. But no, the show has definitely gone into another level. So kudos for that. I guess you guys are getting really good at it. So that's really good. It's an excellent show, by the way.
Thank you.
Huge fan.
Thank you. It's fun. It's always mad panic, and somebody always freaks out behind the scenes. But somehow we always just put it all back together. And it's a lot of fun, and it's a great group. And we've just managed to grow. It used to be just CCP Guard and CCP Artnavi with a little bit of help from Raji Bro and Bigglesworth.
Oh, okay.
But now it's grown quite a bit more, and there's more people throwing in ideas and creating content, and a lot more logistical work behind contests and giveaways and and managing the stream itself. So
it's got to be difficult.
It takes a lot more pressure off God and I to just sit there and talk about spaceships. Which
It's got to be hard. I mean, there's not like there's a separate team that does things like that. So everybody kind of has to wear, to pardon a phrase, many hats when they do.
Yeah,
that.
And it's all pretty much in our spare time, and like with most of the UTV stuff, it's all just, it's fun, and it's nice to be able to give the community a different way of digesting content. It just seems to be more relaxed to be able to talk to somebody sitting on a couch who's working on something, rather than publishing a huge dev blog full of all the words.
Right. Well, I think one of the things I think that it's done too, and not just the 07 show, but all the video outreach has been to really humanize the devs and the people who are working on the game behind the scenes. I think having been in EVE now for 8 years, or going on 9 now, but back in the early days, you guys were very mysterious, living in Iceland and behind a wall of basically just really the forums were the only place to really interact, and that's changed a lot. I mean, with Twitter, with social media, with Slack channels, with 07 shows and videos, and the music videos and everything else. I mean, and the incredible growth too in events. So I'm bringing that up a little early because I wanted to get to that in a little while, but it's a lot different now. You guys are very much for some of you, not everybody, but yeah.
True, not everybody.
No.
But also that doesn't suit everybody on the community side either. But also it's just a different world. Now that those tools for communicating exist, which they didn't really back then.
No.
So many people use them, and they don't want to have to read, or they don't want to have to go to some other place that isn't connected to their normal social outlet, I suppose.
Well, I think that's true. I think that, a lot of that early, the sort of knock against EVE back in the early days was a lot about the spreadsheets and it being a business of its own, right? I mean, EVE is a serious business, and that attachment to that business was because I think in the early days, you did have to do a lot of reading. If you wanted to become good at the game and you wanted to, sort of go to the next level, you really had to do a lot of research, and it wasn't the easiest stuff to find, and that's one of the great things I think about the way the community has responded over the years is, and not just CCP, but the community itself, is the resources the way things are today, it's incredible when you think back to the way things used to be. I mean, you could find there's so many streamers and podcasters and, people who are helping and doing things for new players.
Tools as well, just things that have been created by the community for the community. It's astounding how much is out there. We're very lucky to have such a creative and very talented community.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. Well, some of us anyway. No.
Don't try to be humble. You're wonderful.
I'm trying to be humble. Yeah. But no, I think it is true, and it's an exciting thing, and I think that excitement and that energy, hopefully, translates into increased player participation, so that we have more people to shoot at, right? So, yeah. Do you actually get a chance to play EVE at all, or I mean? I took a look at your kill board earlier. So, your CCP Mimic kill board anyway, the official one. Not a super impressive kill board, but it's okay.
I used to pride myself on how expensive my corpses were because they were only like 2 or 3. But unfortunately, God kept insisting that we go on roams, and of course I die all the time. Right. My CCP character, I sometimes, if I've got time in between meetings, I find it really nice to just pick a random spot on the map and
just show up
there and just turn up and try and fly home.
Right.
It's great. Just say hello to everyone.
Yeah.
I've had wonderful conversations, and everybody's like, they don't believe that I'm me, or they think that I'm a spy, or
right.
that my writing is blue, and it's like, no, I'm me.
I have to say that it's pretty awesome. Yeah, I can still remember the first time a Polaris showed up in local, and I don't remember. I wish I could remember who it was, but I don't remember that anymore. But I do remember. It was not that long after I started playing, and it was such a mysterious and weird thing to have everybody tell me what that was, and the ship can't be hurt, and they could do anything they want and all that. It was kind of cool, and it still is. I know the few times I get to go out to events and you guys pop up in local and stuff, it's still a big deal, Kind of fun.
Well, it's fun. I like going to small random places and trying to, every now and then I find somebody who's hauling.
Right.
And try and tail them. It's like, no. They get a bit freaked out because they're not,
I would think so,
usually paying as much attention. It's like, why are you talking to me?
Those aren't usually the very conversational types, especially when you're following them. Yeah. Can you fit a Sino on a Polaris? I'm not sure. Yeah.
No. I suppose I could, but I'd probably get in a lot of trouble. So I haven't tried.
Yeah, that's funny.
So, it's either that or just hanging out in rookie help and talking to all of them.
Yeah, no, that's always good. I like doing that myself sometimes, but I don't really get the chance to do that all that much now. Back before I started the Alliance, now I've got 800 people to take care of, so that takes a lot of time. But yeah, so events. Let's talk a little bit about that. I know that you have made your. Did you go to Down Under this year, or was that last year?
No, it was the year before that.
It was the year before that. Oh my gosh!
Oh, wow. Well, it's technically we're only 3 weeks into this year, so I'm making it more dramatic than it actually is. But,
all right.
But it was sunny and the sea was nice. Yeah. It was a wonderful place. Yeah. I've been twice now. I'm very lucky. I've been twice.
Yeah, how is that trip? I've heard, Gard, I think the last time Gard went, he was a little bit shaken after all that.
He does so much traveling that when he went, it was the end of November, so it's like kind of the end of his traveling year, and he was like, okay, I'm done with traveling. I'll just stay like one day and then I'll come back. And you're like, it's like 2 days flying there. You stay 2 days for the event and then you fly back for 2 days.
That's crazy.
Which is madness. The first time I went, I stayed an extra 3 or 4 days and just explored Sydney by myself, which is great.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. And then the last time I went, there were 5 devs who went, and Guard went back home, and CCP Puck went down to Adelaide, and CCP Cognac and CCP Larrikin and I went up to Brisbane and stayed with CCP Larrikin's family for a week and went exploring Australia, which was great.
That's awesome.
It was also really nice being with a local, because then you could you had things to do or things to see, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, it totally does. Yeah, absolutely.
Tourist stuff, not really knowing. Yeah, it was.
That's great.
Yeah, and the weather is absolutely fantastic at that time of year. So it was really nice to be able to tie in a personal holiday along with a player meet. And then we just did another player meet while we were in Brisbane, which was nice. And
right, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
I mean, it's so far away that most people in Australia are never going to get to FanFest, unfortunately. A lot of them do come regularly, but it's so far and it's so expensive. But they have so many events that go on around the country all the time. Thanks in no small part to my dear friend Bam Stroker. But
yep, Bam's awesome.
Yeah, he is. So yeah, they're a great community, and I really like hanging out with them. I think it's still one of my default chat channels on CCP Mimic's account, and just always go and speak to the Australians. It's usually when I'm having coffee and answer some questions and rookie help before my meetings start for the day. So,
yeah, I think it's pretty amazing how popular Eve is in Australia. It being so isolated and all, but it still manages to be quite a popular thing there. That's pretty cool. And I know,
think I've spoken to them about it quite a bit, and I think it's their theory, or some of the theories. I was quite drunk at the time, so I can't remember who
right.
exactly told me. But their theory is that because they're so isolated, all of their gamers tend to stick together anyway. So they already have this close gamer mentality, and that matches the Eve community so well with we all kind of stick together and we're all in this together. So they all, I don't know, they just seem to stick longer, and they're very welcoming of new people that come in and really help them out. So.
Right. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I think that's probably some true, and I think language has a lot to do with it too. I've had this conversation before about why Eve hasn't really picked up in, say, areas of the world that you think it would, more in South America, other parts of the world where I think that it just hasn't really kind of clicked in as much. And I think language has a big part to play in that as well. But then you think about China, and how it's growing over there. And have you had you have any sort of, I don't know what the crossover is, I guess, with Shanghai and what's going on in China. They just had their big fan fest not too long ago.
Which CCP Guard went to.
Right.
Last November they had their 10-year anniversary. Really.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. There's a lot of similarities and there are a lot of differences. Simply because of, I guess it's a cultural difference as well as just the difference between the Chinese company that handles Eve for us and CCP. So it's just, I don't know. I would be very interested to go and see it for myself, if that makes sense. It's
absolutely. I would love
numbers to. And looking at patterns of what people do, but it would be so interesting to go and talk to everyone there.
Yeah, I know. It's got to be fascinating as heck to meet somebody. I mean, what was the fan fest that we were at, one before last? They had the Chinese team come and play the Tranquility team, right? And
yes, for Worlds Collide.
The Worlds Collide, right? Yeah, that was fascinating, and I sadly didn't get a chance to talk to any of the Chinese players, but I think it would be fascinating to meet them and actually discuss Eve with somebody who's not involved in in Tranquility at all, but still playing the same game. It's that's fascinating to me. Every once in a while, something will come up in our community, like the map of the Chinese server or, something like that, or some event will have happened on the Chinese server. And it's always very strange, how
very different.
It's very different. Yes.
And just the simple fact that they don't live in wormholes.
Right.
And how would that change if it was on TQ?
Right.
There's so many people there, and it's a whole different.
It's like you give two groups the same tools, and one builds a lighthouse, and then the other one builds a machine gun. Not that it's that because they have their PvP too. But it's
completely
kind of funny.
Different things.
Right. So without giving anything away, of course, and I won't prod you for any confidential stuff or anything, but I mean, what are the kinds of things that you're working on right now that are exciting? We're kind of in this weird lull where a lot of the things that we were teased last year have already come to fruition, and then there's like this little bit of a void now at the build up to FanFest, which we'll get to in a minute. But so we're in this kind of, hey, it's a new year, and so what are some of the things? We haven't really heard anything.
What have we got in store?
What can you tell us?
We're all this week is basically the last week that we can quickly get all our presentations and everything sorted out for the CSM summit that happens next week.
Right, that's right.
So everybody arrives this weekend.
Yay.
And I mean, I can tell you about the things that my team's working on. it's all been announced already. We're working.
It's the best team, right? 5-0 is the best team.
But of course, for everybody out there who doesn't know who's on Team 5-0, this is myself, of course, which makes it brilliant. No,
absolutely.
I'm kidding. Is CCP Habakkuk and CCP Lebowski are our QA. We also have CCP Ginger Dude and CCP Karkur and CCP Masterplan, who are our engineers. And then we have CCP Fozzie and CCP Nagwal as our designers. So we're a really big, hard-hitting team with a lot of engineering power behind us. CCP Kaka is a UI programmer, and her big project, which we finally managed to deliver, which I'm really pleased we managed to do, was the fitting simulator.
Oh, that's amazing! Yep.
But she's also responsible for a lot of the quality of life changes, like multi-fit and multi-buy. And
speaking of, I'm sorry to interrupt, but speaking of the fit simulator, did you hear what happened during the tournament last weekend? Where several, this is a pretty funny story because, the EVNT has, the tournaments.
They're running it at the moment.
Esports, right. So they had the one this weekend that leads up to the big tournament. So the teams compete in order to be able to compete in the big one. Well, a few people, thought they had their ships fitted. Because they were in the simulation mode, so then they undocked and there weren't any fits on their ship. So that's kind of funny. So it was like a whole thing went around about the whole thing went around about make sure that you exit the simulation mode first before you undock. So it was kind of a funny moment in certain parts of the community this weekend, which is pretty funny. But so I'm sorry I interrupted. But that's a funny story.
That's fine. Yeah.
Karkur's great, and we all love her very much. We just want to make sure she stays out of the wind, because she does tend to get blown around a bit. But yes,
I'm also hoping that she comes back in one piece. She's currently in Colorado on a ski trip with a whole bunch of players. Yeah.
Yep. So. That sounds awesome. And for some reason, I thought you were going on that, so that's why I said that about the slopes thing. I don't know how I got that in my head. I thought you were going to that this year, but. So I apologize for that, but yeah.
No trouble at all. I've never actually even tried to ski. I'm from Africa. It doesn't.
Not a lot of snow there. No, it's not. On Kilimanjaro, I think that's the only place, right? So.
There's a little bit on Mount Kenya, but that's it's too steep to climb up
really
and
do much.
Yeah.
All right, so. Karkur did the fitting simulator, which we all love her for.
Yes.
So, yes.
And a whole bunch of other quality of life things. And then
and multi-fit. Was that multi-fit? Was that? No, that wasn't her. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
That's the greatest thing.
And multi-buy. Yeah.
Which I will argue is like the greatest thing ever. So yes, multi-fit.
Yes. And then there's a whole bunch of there's actually too many things that I could list, but going back as far as I don't know, years, we've got years and years of experience and mainly engineering power in our team, which is why we've been given or why we focus all of our attention on what we call the sandbox features, so things that touch all areas of the game,
right?
In some way, and it's always quite difficult. Well, not difficult. It's always a challenge to be able to balance exciting, shiny to world-breaking or very scary. Right. So we're always trying to find something that fits but doesn't cause too much turmoil, because the ecosystem is very fragile, I suppose. I mean, it's self-regulating, and so it can adjust, but you never want to do anything to hurt this crazy beautiful creation that everybody has created, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it does, absolutely. I think it's It's incredibly complicated and very robust, but at the same time, extremely delicate, right?
Yeah.
Because it would be rather easy just to throw everything into chaos, with one simple. And we've seen that before. Sometimes the most minor change, upsets the entire apple cart for a while.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's got to be a challenge.
But at the same time, and then also maintaining everything that's there and trying to bring everything up to scratch, I suppose, or up to where we would like it to be, up to operating speed. Because there's a lot of systems that we're dealing with which are very old, and so it's working with old things and new things and making everything work together. Right. So the engineering complexes and the capital changes from the Citadel expansion before that, and things like that. But at the moment, we are focusing on drilling platforms. That's not the official name for them. We haven't decided on its official name, but this is going to be the next type of structure, which is going to be bonused more for resource gathering and refining and that type of thing, rather than say the engineering complexes, which were for manufacturing and research and more like a high-tech factory, whereas this is more like an oil rig type structure, I suppose. So yeah.
All right. That makes sense. So it's the drilling platform is not going to be called drilly McDrill bits or anything, is it?
No, I hope not. But we're still right in the beginning of those kind of designs, and so we tend to get to the names of things quite late in the process, simply because there's far more important decisions that need to be made than what it's going to be called.
Does it ever sometimes just happen? I find because naming things is something that I've spent a lot of time in my career doing, and sometimes out of the blue it just something comes up and sticks, and it's kind of just the way it happens. Do you find that sometimes, or
it does. It also just depends on what everybody's mood is that particular day,
right?
Like the panic button or the
that's funny.
CCP Mimic one. I can't remember what the actual words are. Something oscillator. The GTFO.
Right.
Anyway, and so they go. On. It just depends on who's in a funny mood that day, or what we're trying to communicate, I guess.
Yeah. That's funny.
But details about all of that and what we want to tie into everything is what we're going to be discussing with the CSM early next week. So all of that's going to be in the minutes, probably about a week or two later when they get published. So I don't want to spill too many beans, because there are some things that we want to discuss with them and get their take on.
Sure. Yeah, no, understood. I will tell you a little anecdote about the CSM. So, I kind of know all everybody. And today and yesterday, I got probably about 6, private messages from various CSM members who will remain anonymous, but, asking me if I had anything specific that they needed to bring up during the summit. And it's funny because this happens almost every year and almost every summit. And this is the first one that I really had a hard time thinking of anything, because, and this is kudos to all the dev teams, not just 5.0, but all of them, is that, it's not like it used to be. It used to be so easy to just rattle off 10 to 20 things that I really, that anybody would have named that you wanted fixed about even. You know what? It runs really, really well. It's much smoother. Everything seems to be purpose-driven, and a lot of the big problems that we had before have gotten really, really small. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they are. I can almost hear just in the background. It's just my own little dev reaction that the whole bunch of people are reacting like, no, that's not true. Why did you bring up this and this and this?
Well, Yeah, there's always something, right? But I mean,
I just get that it's getting more difficult to suddenly react that way, to suddenly come to mind that, oh, we must have this, or oh, we need that. It lends to a more balanced game.
Everybody's play style automatically, no matter what your play style is, whether you're a high sec Care Bear or a low sec scum sucking pirate like myself, no matter what your play style is, you automatically know that there's little things that just annoy the heck out of you, right? Like with me, it's warp core stabs. It'll always be until Fuzzy fixes them, and then there's just a list of faction warfare. I mean, there's some love that needs to happen there. A criminal timers probably need a little love. Maybe the balance of certain things, like assault frigates. I mean. Yeah. They just those poor things just need love, and nobody flies them. So, but it's not a big deal. It's not like it used to be. Like, oh my God, you've got to fix this, or else I'm quitting. Because there's so much else to do too. So I think it's a testament to how far we've come in the last, well, at least for me, the last almost 10 years now, and how far Eve has evolved. That it's to the point where you've got to stop and really think about it now. Yeah. And nothing's really game breaking. I guess probably nullsec people would be hitting me in the head with a bat right now and saying, we've got to fix SOV, but I don't understand how SOV works. We just take advantage of it every once in a while and have some fun with it. But I have no interest in owning anything. But that's just me. But yeah. So that's exciting. CSM's coming. Is that?
Yeah.
I mean, is that a big? That's probably something you got to prepare a little bit for, and put presentations together and all that.
Well, it's not so much presentations, but it's more just the sessions that me and my team are planning to have are going to be pretty long, and right. We just need to make sure that like everybody knows everything about a particular design or a particular idea, so that it's much easier to have like the whole conversation where everybody's already on the same page.
Yes,
because right. I'm terrible at remembering the exact numbers or this. There's always something else that I'm focusing on. So it's making sure that I'm not just me, but everybody else is up to date on why we made certain decisions, if that makes sense.
No, so that
when we're having a conversation and trying to look at a situation or a problem from different angles, if you understand the reasons why, it's so much easier to move a conversation forward to a constructive place rather than having to go back and like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And I was like, no, we made this chain of decisions for these reasons already. So,
right.
But it's very constructive. It's just the meetings can be long, and the CSM have a whole week of full days of meetings. So we try to always have like a proper agenda so that at least we can make sure that everything gets covered that we need to. And also it's just a little bit easier on everybody's minds if they know what they're going to be discussing beforehand. So we'll present stuff, or we'll let them know beforehand, these are the things we're going to cover. So, and these are the things we want you to think about, so that they can come to the conversation prepared and understanding like the direction that we want to go or what aspects we want to discuss.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah, it's got to be kind of exciting, I think. I mean, would it be? I mean, from your perspective, yeah. Yeah. Is this something you actually look forward to?
Yes, it is.
Good.
It's really helpful to be able to just speak to people in person. It makes so much difference. We talk to the CSM almost on a daily basis, but it's just so much easier to just have a conversation face to face than through text.
Right.
It's just easier. So much more gets done, and it always makes things, I don't know, always smoother and easier if you know who it is that you're speaking with. Like, I've met this person, or we sat next to each other at lunch, or we went and had a beer together, or I argued their point and they defended me against the other person, or whatever. You always build up this extra layer of a relationship by having a face-to-face interaction with someone, and it just makes working so much easier and so much quicker.
Well, it's, you know what I've always said, it's the invisible things that you don't know. You know, when you've never met someone, you can have a great relationship over the internet, and I do with lots of people that I'll probably never ever meet. But for those that you meet in person, there's an invisible thing that you have with them. Like right now, I know that no matter what it is I'm saying, that you are smiling, and that, you know, because I just know that about you, can't stop doing it. So, you know, it's those things that are invisible. If I had never met you in person, then I wouldn't know that about you, you know, and it sort of, it glosses over some of the problems that you can have anonymously, because you don't know the body language or the tone of voice or the way things are, or the sparkle in an eye, or, you know, it's the invisible things you can't see. When you're in person, you see those things, and it's human nature, you know, and we all take it for granted, but impersonally, it's not there, you know. So I think that's where a lot of problems come from in our social interactions on the internet, especially because we all sort of we don't know the tone of voice that things have been said in necessarily, or what that body language was like when the person was saying it, right?
Precisely. And that's why I'm just going to use that as a perfect way to go into the next part of this conversation. But that's why meeting people is so important, and getting the community together where everybody gets to talk to each other face to face and meet each other at all these events just is so much better. And it just, they're friends. You just make proper friends. I know what you're saying about being able to have a full, strong relationship and make good friends over the internet. But there is, as you say, something more, something invisible that you get from having met someone.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a good segue into saying that, you know, right now, so when this is coming out, which will probably be next week, is the time when people are considering whether or not to travel to Iceland for FanFest in April. And I would like to talk a little bit about that, but also just off the top of my head, just encourage, if anyone's on the fence about it, that they seriously, you know, take a moment to really consider it. It's definitely worth the trip. I think you should do it if you're a dedicated EVE player, or if you can do it. It's definitely worth it, and you should try to do it at least once. I think it's hard to describe. It wouldn't have changed anything in my the way I involved myself in the EVE community, but it made a huge difference, if that makes sense, to be able to meet everyone and see them in person, and just be very, very excited about being an idiot and being a fanboy, and then meeting people who I only at that point knew from a distance, you know, or talked to on internet. But to meet them in person and to see them in real flesh and blood is something that really can't be. I don't know. I mean, that's the reason why I really, really wanted to come last year, but we are definitely coming this year, by the way. So we've decided, yay. Yep. My wife and I are going to be there for sure. So, barring any, you know, catastrophic problems, but, so yeah, we're very excited. I can't wait to come back. You know, it's I think everything I just said was pretty much true. So, you know, if you're on the fence about it, I recommend that you do it.
Yeah, so. I would too. It's also, there is a large cost associated with it. There's a lot of time, and there's a lot of money to get to Iceland. So if you can't ever get to FanFest, or you can't go this year, then I'd strongly suggest trying to find something local. Like, it doesn't have to be the same time of year, but there's most likely going to be a meet close to you. They're all over the place now, and like being able to meet at least one or two other people just makes a huge difference. I think it certainly does. Absolutely, just a shared hobby, and you've just got spaceships in common. And even if you don't talk about spaceships when you meet them, that's fine too. It's nice to have some kind of connection with everybody that we fly past in the middle of the starry sky, or jumping through
Yeah.
jumping to another.
It's great. And if there's none in your area, then, feel free to start one. We did that last year. Last summer we had, there wasn't one around here. So my wife and I did one, and, about 20 people showed up. It was awesome. And we're probably going to do that again this year. So, it was great. And, it's surprising how little Eve you talk at the Eve meet sometimes, but it was great meeting everybody and being in person. It's the local ones are fun too, because they're, a lot of them are very small and casual and, not huge, big pressure filled events. I think a lot of people, I know it's funny because, Eve is typically populated by very socially awkward nerds who don't always have the best skills. And it's tough sometimes to break the ice, but, these casual things are great and it's a lot less pressure. And so we had a lot of fun with that.
And also it's not like a normal, in my mind, it's not like a normal social scary situation, if that makes sense, where I'm not randomly going to like a conference or something else where I don't know anyone, which happens for a lot of people who come to FanFest, that they don't know anyone, they just turn up. But it's okay because you always have the fallback of Eve, if that makes sense. So everybody already has a really strong connection to each other that you can always just talk spaceships if there's anything else that, if you don't feel that you're good at small talk or anything like that, and you just want to get to know someone, say, hey, where do you fly, or what do you fly, or who do you fly with, or what was the last thing you killed, or what was the last thing that killed you, or how much ISK did you make last week, or whatever. There's a bunch of topics that you can just dive straight in with and then get to know people. It's nice having a shared hobby, a shared passion with everybody who's already there.
Yep, and the thing you find out rather quickly is that everybody is just a person like you are, and they have the same interests and the same things that you have, and it's awesome. And the ice gets broken real quick, and everybody becomes fast friends, no matter what side of the fence that you're on. It's pretty cool. It's amazing, actually, and I can't wait to do it again. So I'm very excited about that.
Good. I'm very pleased to hear you coming to join us.
Yay. Well, I have to share something with you, Shauna, because, or Mimic, I'm sorry. Should I edit that out? No, you're pretty open with it.
Leave it in. It's fine.
All right.
CCP Rise keeps doing that to me on stream because he knows it.
Right. But still my favorite moment, and I will never forget it. Because it was funny because I had made myself such an idiot when I had the first day when we arrived. Spitfire took us through the offices, and we were very tired. We'd been up for a whole day almost at that point. So, and it was like 3 days even before FanFest started, and we were just walking through, and just to see everybody. And what I forgot was that nobody knew who I was, which didn't make any sense to me. It was a little bit weird because I'm obviously pretty well known, but nobody knew it was me, right? So, but I had I was waving at people and smiling, and they had no clue who I was. So that was pretty funny, but yeah. So, but I will never forget it because when we came outside I think it was at the charity dinner, I believe, and we're all standing in a circle, and so we're starting to talk, and then you came into the circle. And so we're introducing everybody, and I said I said my name, and I will just never forget it. You made my whole FanFest with your reaction, so I really appreciated that. It was very sweet. And
I'm such a fan. It's just I love awesome. Your work. It's just like finally, yay, someone who I actually know, because I hear so many names, and I'm terrible with names, and I always feel awful that. Oh,
it's horrible.
I never should have met someone or not, and I'm good with faces, but during FanFest I meet hundreds of people, and so. And
I have the same problem. I'm great with faces, but names, tough.
I'm absolutely useless.
And then the other side of it is that once you meet people, and this is the sort of the downside of meeting people, because then you have two names you have to remember. You have to remember who they are in the game and also their real name. So that makes it doubly worse for me, because either I can't remember their in-game name or I can't remember their real person name. So that's kind of funny. But that's a great thing.
It is. I have several like really close friends that I just know them by their in-game names, and I've only met them at FanFest, and it's just or like once a year or something like that, and I just don't have space for another name. If I remember another name, something else important will fall out of my head.
Right.
So.
Well, I think it's something that we often forget, is that the people who work at CCP are human beings too.
Yeah.
You guys have your you're part of the community as well, and you have your things as well. I mean, and I get excited about meeting different people that come in, and not just me, but anybody. I mean, because you've never met them either.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's the other side of the story. It's kind of exciting for you guys as well. Although I do know, FanFest is a lot of work for everybody. So how's that? I mean, is that really? I mean, you guys put in a lot of effort and time getting ready for it, but
it's fun.
Yeah.
And,
it's still
and everyone
worth it,
has such an awesome time. So you just kind of just live on Red Bull and adrenaline for about 3 weeks going at it, and then and crash afterwards. But it's good fun. We've it's started already, all the prep. I mean, well, for UTV, I mean, the event organizers, Curtis and Ruffage, they work on this stuff all the time. It's one event to the next, and they're flitting all over the place. But
that's amazing.
And also this is the 20th anniversary of CCP as a company.
Right.
So
that's amazing.
So if you're still on the fence about coming to FanFest, this is going to be a big one. So come on, it's going to be good.
Yeah, all right. I forgot about that. Yeah, it's the 20th. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's and the other part of it too is that it's in Iceland, which is just a freakishly amazing little tiny country. Because my wife and I, we had never been, and it was obviously not exactly high on the vacation resort areas to travel to, but it will steal your heart away. It's a great little place, and it's absolutely drop dead gorgeous. And this year we're staying a few extra days actually, so that we can see a little bit more of it that we didn't get to see the last time, because it's an amazing place, and the people are incredible, and I can't speak highly enough about it.
Absolutely fine. But this has been fun.
Great. Good. Do you have any last words or anything you'd like to say to everybody before we go?
I'm not sure. Keep being awesome. I absolutely love this community, and I don't think that my job or all the stuff that like all the EVTV stuff that I get to do in my spare time, which is basically just playing.
Right.
If I'm honest, I mean, I get to pretend to be a TV star, and it's marvelous.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? Does your family know about it, or I mean, this?
This is a really funny story.
Okay.
Last year I went to Vegas.
Right.
It was the first time I'd been to Vegas, and Vegas had never been on my list of places to go because it had always just seemed like bright lights and lots of money, which is not really the way that I like to spend holidays. I like being outside and like quite happy to go camping or like ride a horse or whatever. I'm happier outside than inside. Anyway, and Eve TV stuff is usually still a little bit stressful for me, just because I get nervous, and that's fine. And there's a lot of work that goes involved, and Vegas was a much smaller team than we have at FanFest, so it was a lot more work, and also it was right before the Ascension expansion, and so we were really busy in my actual day job.
Right.
So there's a lot going on. Anyway, off I trot to Vegas, to the bright lights and all the money. And my brother has just moved from South Africa to North Carolina. He's transferred for his job. So, and I hadn't seen him in 2 years, and he's my favorite person in the whole world. So, yeah. So he decided that, if I'm in Vegas, then he's always wanted to go to Vegas, so he'll come to Vegas.
Oh, wow.
So, okay, that'll be great. It'll be busy, but It'll be great. So we arranged that he would arrive on the Saturday, and we would go to the party on the Saturday night, and then he'd flit around Vegas on the Sunday while I finished the last day, and then I'd go back to North Carolina. Anyway, it was a really crazy weekend, and Vegas is insane, and there's so much going on all the time. There's lights and noise and people, and everybody's happy and excited because they haven't seen everyone in so long, and everything is crazy hyper. And I was so excited that my brother was arriving. Anyway, my brother had spent the day flying around in a helicopter proposing to his now fiance.
Oh, wow.
And so they were all crazy and tired and excited and all the rest. And then I met him underneath the Eiffel Tower in front of the fountains to the Bellagio at a place where, while we were trying to have a conversation of, hi, how have you been for the last 2 years?
Right.
People kept coming to interrupt us so that they could take a selfie with me. Just the most surreal experience I think that I've ever had of trying to explain what I do for a job. Complete and utter madness of a place which didn't make any sense. Anyway, it all calmed down a couple of days later, and it's like, okay, it's fine.
Vegas had to be. Oh, I'm getting a weird thing too, but it had to be a bit of a cultural shock, I would think. Just to throw you off your. Yeah. What a great story, though. You're totally space famous.
I think the best was watching his facial expressions while he was trying to understand the words to Walk to the Dance Floor. But yeah, it was a great night and a great time. And
that's awesome.
Vegas
what a great story.
Worth visiting. Yeah. But yes, sorry, I got very sidetracked with my little story. What I actually wanted to say was, keep being awesome, Eve community. I absolutely adore you, and I'm so glad that I get to be a part of all of this, and this is considered my job. It's an absolute privilege.
Well, awesome. On behalf of the Eve community, I would like to say likewise. We're very fortunate to have you, and not only yourself, but all the other devs that are like you, and the great dedication and enthusiasm that you have for this stupid internet spaceship game that we all love so much. And it's really, really wacky, and it doesn't make any sense. And that's why we love it. I think there's really no rational way to explain it to anyone who's not part of it, but it's crazy and it's wacky, but we're very fortunate to have the people like yourself. So thank you. And thanks for being my guest on the podcast tonight. I appreciate it.
It was an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me, and I will see you in 10 weeks.
Yeah, boy, yep. It's gonna come fast. So yeah, I look forward to it. Take care and have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks, Rixx. Bye.